I was surprised to see you at the managers meeting the other day.
John asked me to come in. I'm always happy to meet with you guys.
No, I think everybody should be updated.
So is that the normal group or were there new people there?
There was a lot not there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was a very small group.
Well, yeah, I saw John at Town Gown and he asked me, sent me an email after that and said, can you please come to Town Gown, or not Town Gown, to the property manager meeting?
No, I think they should all be informed. So that was good.
Yeah, no, we're happy to do it. You meet quarterly?
You're going to have that much competition.
Well, we'll see what materializes, Dory.
Hello. Can you hear me? Good. I seem to have a yellowish tint today. Not sure why. Maybe my light.
Paul, did you get the message that Luann won't be here this evening?
Yeah.
So I think Craig was seated last time for one item, so that would mean Laurel is up if you need an alternate. You should probably ask everyone if they're make sure they're all familiar with the record before voting tonight, since we had one project that went on for multiple hearings.
Right. Okay. So I see we have Brian Coleman here. Is that?
Yeah, good evening, everybody.
Hi. We have a quorum.
You do. If you're ready to start, we can start the recording, Paul.
Okay, yeah, go ahead and start it.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting of Mansfield, Connecticut on February 22nd, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. Members present are Aho, Acorsi, Chandy, Cotton. Did I see Cotton? Yes, I see Cotton. DeVivo. See, I don't see DeVivo. Fatoni. Plant. Ward. And alternates or alternate. Which is Manville here?
She is not, and I think
Not.
she actually may have sent an email last week. I'm just going to double check saying that she would not be here today.
Okay. So Craig, you're seated tonight for absent members.
Yes, she did say that she was going to be unlikely to call in this evening.
Okay. So everyone who is here tonight has participated in all of the times that we've looked at the standard at Four Corners. Okay, good. We have minutes from February 7th.
May I
Yes.
speak to that?
Yeah.
First of all, I thought it was a great job. It's always hard to do the public hearings, I think, and get the essence of them. I appreciate the fact that this points brought up for discussion are mentioned, and properly so. There is no discussion on the discussion. That's the way you're supposed to do it.
Right.
So a great job. Having said that, I can't help myself. In the public hearing at the very beginning, where you list who attended, it says an alternates which and Manville. I think we have to add there both of whom were not seated. And
Okay.
the reason to do this is that often we end up in court and we really want to be properly accounted for. And also because other committees look at these minutes all the time. So I'm happy to say they get a good report.
Thank
So
you,
with
Vera,
that-
for good
That's
catch.
a correction.
What would we do without you?
Oh, I can imagine you'll work it out just fine.
Okay, so but you did move, right?
So I moved to
Okay.
as corrected.
Is there a second?
Second, Chandy.
Second by Chandy. Okay, all in favor? Aye, okay, passed unanimously. Any questions for Jolene about the zoning report?
Paul, I do have one quick thing to add.
Okay, yeah,
That's okay. So we were contacted by a prospective buyer of 175 Stafford Road, which was operating as a physical therapy office. And Paul was consulted, and we've decided that chiropractic and physical therapy, same use. So no change.
okay. Thank you. So the old business we have is the special permit application of the standard at Four Corners. And we have Linda, should we put the, now we have three different motions here. We should discuss the motions, right? Discuss whether we're going to have the three motions. Is that the proper order of things?
So Carlita volunteered so staff worked with Ms. Cotton to prepare the motions. You do have 3 before you. One is for a waiver of submission of application information. The second one relates to provision of sidewalks along the entire frontage. And the reason that we pulled that out from the main motion is that a sidewalk is presently not shown along the entire frontage of the property. The applicant has identified that they would like to defer construction of the connection to the eastern property, which is the Toast Four Corners and Hops 44 and Sunoco Mike's Pizza, those 2 properties. And so that's something that is covered in the main approval motion in terms of a financial guarantee for that construction to defer it if the commission is amenable to that. There, however, was not a similar approach to the western property line. Currently, the proposed sidewalk ends at the pump station. And so a waiver to extend that all the way to the western property line would be needed if the commission wanted to do that. And pursuant to the regulations, you would need a vote of 7 members in order to grant a waiver. So having learned our lesson from the last time that we tried to wrap this all into one motion, we split it out this time so that it's clear.
John DeVivo joined us at 6:06 and Craig is still seated. As far as that second motion goes, my opinion is that they should either build the sidewalk or if they're waiting for development, I don't see any difference between waiting for development to the east or waiting for development to the west. There's some perfectly good land to the west there that has close to sewer, has water going through, that is not in a wetlands. So I think my opinion would be to leave that the same going east and west, to build it if development is done. So to the east, it'll be developed if some development goes into the east, right?
So the proposal right now is for the eastern portion, they wanted to coordinate the design and location with the abutting property owner. So that was why they asked for the deferral for the eastern portion.
Right.
To the Toast Four Corners and Hops 44 property.
So we could do the same thing to the west. Vera, what do you say?
Well, I agree with your premise. I think we should put the sidewalk in the whole way. There will be other things out that way, I thought, for conservation easements or whatever that people might want to walk to. I just think we ought to put it in the whole way. I'm even thinking that we should put it all the way through to the eastern boundary, because what's the big deal about connecting sidewalks? I don't get the design issue if that's what they're talking about. I don't know what they're talking about.
So the issue, and I believe this was in one of my staff reports, is that there's a wetland that comes up to Stores Road. And so for example, I believe it was the Conservation Commission or Parks and Natural Resources that suggested that they may want to divert the sidewalk crossing away from Stores Road to go to a narrow finger of the wetland and do the crossing there. So that's why they wanted to defer and see if they could coordinate with the adjacent property owner on the best way to locate a wetland crossing for that sidewalk.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm sorry, I forgot that part. But anyway, okay. I do think we ought to go to the western boundary.
Yeah.
I have a clarification. So there is a financial guarantee to complete that section.
That would mean which section are you?
The eastern section with the wetland issue.
So the proposed approval motion that you were sent, and I'm going to pull up, bear with me as I try to find that section of the motion. It takes up multiple slides. So I'm going to share my screen here. So what we've suggested, and I will say that this comes before, I believe if I check the preceding slide, it is a condition to be met prior to issuance of certificate of zoning compliance. And one of those conditions is the applicant shall submit a financial guarantee for sidewalk. And this is where you see in the tan text, if you want this for both east and west, that it would be sidewalk connections to the properties to the east and west, subject to the provisions of Article 6, Section C, if such connections have not been completed during construction. The town attorney, chair of planning and zoning commission, and town finance director shall be authorized to set the terms of the agreement and accept the financial guarantee, provided that a surety bond shall not be accepted without commission approval. As part of such submission, the applicant shall provide a cost estimate for review and approval by the assistant town engineer. So that is one of the conditions. Another one that is related to this, again, prior to certificate of zoning compliance, in working with Commissioner Cotton. Item B, the applicant shall submit a revised landscaping plan for commission review and approval that enhances the proposed George Road streetscape to comply with the requirements of Article 10, Section A.11.A.1, which requires a prominent pedestrian-oriented and extensively landscaped streetscape. Such plan shall include at minimum enhanced plantings, specifications for street furniture, including but not limited to a bus shelter that provides accessible seating and protection from the weather, extension of the walkway along the entire property frontage to connect to the abutting properties to the east and west, and widening of the proposed sidewalk within the right-of-way from 5 feet to 8 feet to be consistent with the walkways previously installed within the PV3 district.
So in the one you showed us before, that there's a bond to do it.
Correct. So they
one,
could either,
right.
if they don't construct it by the time that they're asking for a certificate of compliance, this would authorize you to do a financial guarantee and agreement.
I get it.
So
Okay.
This financial guarantee is moot if they have constructed, if they've gotten approval for
Right.
those sidewalk extensions and constructed them before they ask for a certificate of zoning compliance, this would not be needed.
So, yeah, go ahead, Bino.
The clause B or C, whatever, the one that you just discussed previously. There it talks, the term used is walkway, and in the other clause it says sidewalk.
Okay.
Is
Yeah,
that
they should agree with each other. There we go. Okay, is the commission in agreement that we should treat the east and west the same as I'm
No.
proposing? No.
I'm not in agreement. So if we ask them to do, require them to do the sidewalk to the west, that section gets revised to just talking about the east, right?
East and west, if we
Well,
want the
we're
west,
not-
yeah.
well, we have a separate spot for the east if they don't do it, that they have to
We
do
can put them
guarantee.
together, east and west in the same clause.
But
So-
we're asking, but, okay, but I don't understand. I think we're talking about two different sidewalks. One, they can defer and get a bond for it and whatever. The west, I'm saying, I don't think it should be deferred.
Oh, okay, I hear what you're
I
saying.
don't think
Okay.
it should be part of the one that is.
Okay, so you're saying we should not defer the one to the west, and we can continue to defer the one to the east.
That's what I think.
Okay, well, what, anybody else?
what was the second motion? I'm a little confused now.
So the second motion is that they don't have to build the one to the west. But I think basically what we're talking about is whether they should build it immediately or whether they should be allowed to defer it. If I'm reading the commission correctly, off the table is not building it.
So the waiver, the second motion, so the three motions that you have, and I'm going to share my screen again just to. So the first motion that you have before you is granting waivers to certain site plan checklist items relating to mapping of trees and vegetation types. So that's the first motion. Do you agree to waive the submission of that information? The second motion was really prepared just for discussion purposes, because their plans do not show the sidewalk connection to the west. If you were okay with that and not having that sidewalk extend the entire length of the property, then this motion would be needed to waive the requirement that they install that portion. If this motion is not made, seconded, and approved, then no waiver is granted. And again, to do a waiver, you would need the vote of 7 members. So
I would be in favor of just not having that amendment. But we still need to decide whether we want that built immediately or if we're treating the east the same as west.
So
are there any other opinions of commissioners?
Mr. Chair, one way to do this might be to ask if anyone wanted to put this motion forward, because then if no one puts it forward, seconds and it's not approved, then we can just take this motion out of the equation for waiving.
Okay, very good. Okay, would someone like to put the second motion forward?
You stop sharing.
Okay, well, that solves, yes, go ahead, Dorian.
Now, if we waive the sidewalk, does that mean it's never going to get built?
Not by, they would have no requirement to build it, which would then presumably put that back on the town if we wanted to extend it in the future.
Yes, Binu?
Is it possible to project, a map and show us exactly what we're talking about so it's clearer? I'm sorry, Linda.
It's okay. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, Vera?
Doing that, do you remember across the street, we waived the sidewalk? And in retrospect, I think we thought probably we shouldn't have. That's how I feel about this one. At least
I agree with you, Vera. It should be built either now or eventually. Yes.
So here is the plan. So this is the western property line. And this is the proposed, at least the initial proposed location for the bus stop. The sidewalk, which right now is designed at 5 feet wide, which, as you can see, then takes a kind of left turn and goes down and then has access to building 1000 in the dog park. It does not continue over to the edge of their property.
And that's probably about 100 feet, maybe 75 feet.
Yeah, you and I had this discussion earlier. It's to scale it off. It looks like it might be a little over 100 feet. Again, I don't have a scale on this. These may be wetlands. So honestly, whether or not a sidewalk goes in here would be a wetlands agency decision.
Right.
At some point.
Okay. Okay, I didn't hear anyone who wanted to put that motion forward. So I think that's off the table for now. And we can discuss anything that is associated with the third motion at that time. Let's go back to the first motion. Would someone like to put the first motion forward?
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Why are we granting a waiver on a landscape plan? Don't we require a landscape plan?
We're not. I see. Yeah.
They did provide a landscape plan. So let me pull up the staff report. These were specific items that have to do with existing vegetation and calling out size and species of various trees. And given their development and the limits of disturbance and the fact that this was redevelopment, they asked to not have to provide that level of detail. So let me.
But that's one of our requirements, right?
It is, but you have the ability to waive and say that for for specific projects that they don't need to submit certain information. So they did submit a landscape plan. Again, I think the issue is they're given the type of improvements they're doing to the property. They asked to not have to identify specific trees, and it is a redevelopment. Most of the site is already developed with other items. And if you'll bear with me, I just want to pull up my staff report and I'll share the screen.
So so does someone have to approve what they do at some point, or are they on their own?
They have a landscape plan that's part of the package. If you approve the proposed plan, you're approving the landscaping plan. This is more on an existing conditions report and mapping. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen for the items that were in the staff report. So the first item was that they've identifying the specific species. So any major trees 9 inches or more in caliper, shrubs 3 feet in height, located and identified by species. So they did show existing trees, but they did not identify types. That they've have existing vegetation to be removed, including location, size, and species of all trees 9 inches or greater. Again, because in some areas where they're removing areas of vegetation, they did not specify. And then street trees and vegetation to be retained. Again, did not identify types because typically they're more in groupings. They're not individual trees that they're keeping and preserving in a specific location. And then the last item is not a waiver is not needed because they provided that information in another part of the application. So it's really the first 3, and it's about the existing vegetation, the location, what's there, what's going to be removed, and what's going to be retained.
I can put that forward.
Okay.
I just have to switch the
Shandy moves to grant waivers to site plan checklist items 5.g.7, 7.t.4, and 7.c.5 related to mapping of trees and vegetation types pursuant to Article 5, Section B.4 for the special permit application of the Standard at Four Corners LLC and Haven Communities LLC, PZC file 1372-2. This waiver is granted as the information is not needed to determine compliance with the regulations.
Moved by Chandy.
Cotton, second.
Okay, second by Cotton. All in favor? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Okay, now we can go on to motion 3. And we don't have Ken Ron here to read very long motions. Who feels that their lungs are good tonight?
May I ask a question before?
Yes, okay.
We talked at the second public hearing, I think it was, or maybe the first, about having charging stations. And I forget how many they had listed. It seemed like it was only 3 or 4. I can't remember for sure. And it seemed that we thought there should be more. There's no accountability here for that.
It's not in the motion? We can add it to the motion.
Linda, do you have any thoughts on that?
So I believe that, and I know Benu held up 4 fingers. I think it was 4 or 6. I think there were 2 in the surface lot and maybe 4 in the garage from the presentation that the applicant did. So we presently don't have any car charging requirements in our regulations. So I know it's something that the commission is very interested in. In terms of what you do have the ability to condition, as you know, given the length of this motion, to put conditions on applications and on approvals. So I just want to pull up that specific language so that I have it in front of me in terms of what you are authorized to do.
So since they did talk about having 4+2, perhaps a condition could be that they put in 4+2.
How many parking spaces do we have? I mean, does this include all the retail parking spaces as well?
So the total number of spaces, is 646, 203 surface, 443 in the garage.
Well, I'm no expert, so I won't stand on that. I thought there was only 3 or 4 total, but Craig?
I'd be happy with requiring them to provide the number of spaces that they said they would require. Craig, did you have your hand up?
Yes,
You're muted. You're muted.
Thank you. I'm wondering why we're not forward thinking, and what makes us think that 6 charging spaces among the maybe 60 or 70 electric vehicles students will bring would be sufficient. How are people going to charge their electric vehicles? Everyone watching TV now and commercials know that electric is what's happening. Everyone needs a place to plug their vehicles in. Why aren't we forward thinking more about what the demand for these charging stations is going to be? Is anyone projecting, or can anyone project how many vehicles in 3 years will be electric and need charging requirements? I would guess it's more than 4.
That's a good point, Craig. I think, but I think if we get them to do more than 0, 3 years from now, they'll put the 60 ones out there. They'll have to. Go ahead, Katie.
I agree with Greg. The other thing is their community, the managing company, are they going to service them? I wasn't around when they did the Price Chopper and they have a service station for an electric vehicle, but from what I've been told, it's never worked.
It never works. Yes.
Yeah, and you can put in upteen number of them, but if we don't have any control on making sure that they work, then it's a waste of time. I want more there. I agree. I think that you're going to find the younger kids going with electric vehicles simply because of the cost of gas too. But I don't know how we can regulate it, since we don't have any regulations that say we can control it. We can't go back on them to say, okay, I've gotten complaints, fix it. And I don't know what we can do about that.
Go ahead, Linda.
So I just wanted to, conditions, there is in the regulations for approval of special permits, it enumerates the types of conditions and safeguards that the commission can attach to a special permit. And G is additional off-street parking or other special features beyond the minimum required by these regulations. So, and I will note that one of the special permits that they are asking for from you tonight is a reduction in parking due to the proximity. And so they've applied for parking credits through provision of bicycle parking, as well as the location of the bus stop. So they're actually asking for a reduction. I believe it was ultimately a 20% reduction in parking requirements for the site because of providing those alternative means of transportation. So it looks like there is a possibility here in terms of enforcement. If you are requiring charging stations for electric vehicles as part of your approval, then that becomes part of the zoning approval, and that's incumbent on them, just as with maintaining landscaping and other items, that they have to maintain that as functional. I think one of the challenges that we've had with the ones at Price Chopper, those were not ones that we required them to put in. Those were something they opted to install. So because it wasn't a requirement of a zoning permit, we don't have an enforcement capability on that. Whereas if it's a requirement of a zoning approval, failure to maintain it and comply with that zoning approval is something that the zoning agent can enforce in the future.
And I'm glad you explained that. Okay, Vera?
I think we should add in about additional stations. And Craig, I don't know if you have a fair number to add to, as you think it might be. I don't know, but I just don't think we should ignore it.
What's a good number, Craig?
Well, I don't think we should pick a number out of the air. I think, I don't think that's what we're supposed to be doing. I think maybe someone could do a Google search and find out what the projection is for amount of electric vehicles on the road in 3 years and kind of work back and kind of at least get a ballpark number that's based on something besides how many Craig would want.
So that's something we can't introduce new evidence after a hearing is closed.
Oh.
So that's something that I don't believe we can do at this point. I can ask the town attorney if that's something that, you can you do independent research after the hearing is closed to decide on a condition. I'm not sure.
I think basically the hearing is over, Craig.
Yeah, okay.
Now here's what I propose. We require the 6 and any additional ones which they may deem to be necessary in the future.
Can we revisit it like we do other transportation studies and all? Can we?
Oh, that's a good question. Yes, can we revisit it, Linda? No, that's a hard question.
It is a hard question. So I know that one of your discussion points at the last meeting was seeking a traffic study after the property had been occupied. It was fully occupied. And I did check with the town attorney about that. And the answer was no, because there's really once the project's approved, there's no, even if a traffic study were required and it showed that there was more traffic than had been projected, it has a certificate of compliance. There's no recourse at that point. And it's also something in this case that no mitigation measures were identified as being needed. So this isn't something where, we had a mitigation measure that was identified as being needed because of the development. So when it comes to, you're suggesting, can we revisit the number of car charging spaces at a later date and require additional ones if it's not sufficient? I'm not sure how we would determine that. So Paul, you're suggesting, ensuring that the 6 that they mentioned, and I, as I said, I know there are 2 on the site plan set. I believe they mentioned that there are 4 in the garage, which we did not, I don't believe we got a revised plan set for that that showed those 4.
Linda, in the school project, didn't we say we were going to revisit the traffic?
We did. And that's why, but I would say 2 differences. One, in the school project, the traffic report identified an issue that needed to be mitigated and examined different levels of mitigation. And the one that was chosen was kind of the least amount of construction. And so there is a requirement that after the school is open and all site improvements are completed, that a new traffic study is done. And if the mitigation that was installed isn't working, that another mitigation measure be applied. So A, there was mitigation identified as being needed in that case. And B, I would also say it's the town. So we were basically requiring ourselves to go back and fix the problem for our own project. So again, in this case, the traffic report did not identify the need for any mitigation. So to ask them to come back with a traffic report after the fact, if it identified a problem, it's already been approved. We don't have recourse at that point. So the town attorney did not think we could require that.
Yes, Bino.
So coming back to Linda's comment about, because the public hearing is closed, we may not be able to pick out a number from research, but these are our conditions, right? So public hearing is asking the applicant and seeking comments. When it's the commission's conditions, do we need to rely on a public hearing comment number and not do our own homework, if you're allowed to put conditions?
If you'll bear with me, I'm going to try and get an answer for you on that. Hold on.
Thank you. Paul Dorian is waiting to.
Okay, oh, sorry. Okay. Yes, John. Somehow we're not hearing you. Okay. You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yes.
We could ask them to put like conduit inside the garage so that way, because we don't have a number of charging stations, but we need, there needs to be a way that we as a board know that they can put them in. And if you just say you have to put conduit somewhere in the garage or even underground in the parking lot outside, that would make it, that leaves for Craig, if he wants 100 or they want to put, 400 parking spots, they could put 400. They just have, there's access to do that. I would assume there's enough power to do it in the building. Must need a transformer. I mean, that's a lot of charging stations. I just don't know how you would.
Right. No, that's a good suggestion. Yeah. Go ahead, Dorian.
Well, I mean, the bottom line is dealing with properties on a daily basis. I do. If I would say the 6 is suitable for now because of what the demand is in the town, isn't as great as you think.
You're fading away. Okay.
And with the property, they would turn around, and if they're going to lose tenants because they don't have these stations, they would be stupid not to put more in.
I think I agree with Dorian. I think the free market's going to solve that problem.
Right. If you don't have the amenities for me to live there, they're not going to go live there.
Binu?
That's a really good point. And perhaps, just having plug points and assigned spaces. If somebody, has an electric car, they'll bring their own system for, plug in.
But I think we should go with the 6 just to jump start it.
Yeah. And then some additional language, and react as the market demand and provide if we need to.
I think including John's suggestion of expanding the conduits for future use would be wise on their part, and they might appreciate that recommendation.
Would you make it a recommendation or a requirement?
It's up to them. If it's going to be tenant driven, the demand, it's wise to do it on their part now. if 10% of the cars in 3 years are going to be electric. It's
for
why
the- yeah.
it's
So
wise
for
for
the
them.
purposes of the motion, it'll be a recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So
Um,
I was able to get in touch with Kevin Deneen, our town attorney, and he said, no, you cannot, because the hearing is now closed, you cannot go off and try and research best practices at this point. You can go
Okay.
on the basis of the hearing and you can pick a number, but you cannot come in and, go back and say, oh, let's do some research and figure out what number we want it to be.
I'll say while you were gone, I think we reached a consensus for the
Oh,
6.
okay.
And the free market is going to take care of the rest of them.
Okay, so you want, but we want to specify the plan set to show the 6 spaces
Yes.
with electrical
Well-
car charging capabilities pursuant to the presentation made during the public hearing.
That'll get them started.
Okay, and was there something about encouraging them to do something?
Craig, you want to put a little meat on that?
I would tell them to plan for an expansion of the charging system because we think based on our student demographics, the demand for electric charging stations could be greater than the 10% in the general public.
Did you get that, Linda?
Yeah, I'm working. Yes, I'm gonna try and, okay.
Minu?
Personally, I wouldn't put student demographics just because we've been bringing
Yeah.
home the point that we do not want us.
Yeah, stay away from the word student with a 10-foot pole.
Well, you don't want to have a complex that none of the kids with nice cars can live in either because there aren't any charging stations. I mean, that's blocking. We're not going to have that problem.
Well, Dorian has the solution to that. If the kids are moving away, they'll change.
If you don't have the amenities, they're not going to go there. So if they keep getting people that say you don't have enough stations and they don't sign a lease with you, you're going to think twice about not putting it in there.
So put the first 60% of what Craig said in the.
Yeah, don't put the
Okay.
student. We're trying to encourage families.
So based on your discussion, I'm gonna show you what I've put in. I'm also going to show you another option that you may have.
Okay.
Hold on. So the condition I added this is under revisions to the plan set that would need to be submitted prior to public hearing, prior to issuance of a zoning permit. Revise the plan set to show 6 spaces with electric car charging capabilities pursuant to the presentation made during the public hearing, and a note requiring all charging stations to be maintained in operable condition. The applicant is also encouraged to plan for an expansion of the car charging system to accommodate future demand.
Looks good.
So that's one option. The other that I was thinking of that where you could include something is under 3A, because we are requiring them to submit a parking management and signage plan. And that we are asking them to deal with the bicycle parking as part of that. So this is really more management for commercial parking though. So I think probably the first one is.
Yeah, I think that's the right place for it.
The better fit. So one thing I will note is the reason condition 8 was in red was really to identify that this was a discussion point from working with Commissioner Cotton that she wanted to discuss with the commission a little bit more.
The windows?
Yes.
Okay.
So so that's why it was put in red is a discussion item for the commission
Okay.
as a whole.
And we can discuss that. Oh, well, you want to talk about it now? Carlita, you want to tell us what you're thinking?
Well, okay, if we can pull up the picture, pull up
Yep.
the model, so you can see that you might want to add some of what it's about pure aesthetics.
Yes.
So, so if you see them, you know, some it looks like a wall, just a plain empty wall where it would, in keeping with the rest of the community, look better if it were more windows, for example, on that western end.
Right, so
I think that was brought up during the hearing too. Maybe by you. Somebody brought it up.
I remember it being brought up in the context that there were windows on a facade that aren't really windows. They were just placed there for,
Right.
but I don't recall exactly Carlita's position
so
being
this,
discussed.
this was something that I had called out in a staff report as an item for commission determination. So when working on the motion, Commissioner Cotton identified that this was really something that she wanted to discuss with the rest of the commission because it hadn't been discussed. You didn't discuss it after the hearing closed.
Right.
So building 1000, and I think to Commissioner Witch's point, these items were what Commissioner Aho questioned in the hearing itself. And I can see if I can zoom in a little bit more to make this easier. But essentially, they appear to be closed shutters to give you.
I'm not seeing the picture.
Are windows located behind them, and then you have, as you can see on these elevations, you know,
I can't see it. I can't see it, Linda.
Oh,
Yeah. You got to stop sharing and then reshare.
sorry. It's so hard because it looks like you're seeing it.
Right.
And
Right.
how's that?
Yes,
There
now we
we
can see it.
go.
Okay. So in this location, these are what I call the closed shutter application to make it appear that there are windows behind there, even though there are not. So this is, you know, that to deal with the blank facade there. So this is, these are the extents that we're looking at in
Right.
terms of, you know, is that something that needs to also be addressed? So that's the western elevation. And then
I think I'd agree with Carlita. Something needs to be put there.
Then I just wanted to know what
Tree.
your thoughts were.
so in most of the locations where you see that are really internal to the site, which, you know, the two that I called out in my staff report are a little bit more just given the location. So building 3000, it was the eastern elevation. So this is your storefront. So where it's wrapping around.
Any other comments on that? I agree with Carlita. It looks a little bit like a mistake.
So, well, we did call this to their attention and they said, nope, this is what we are proposing. They're trying to balance the exterior with the interior floor plans. So the condition was to add additional windows or other architectural details to break up the large expanses of blank wall area. So it does give them an option that doesn't require a change to the floor plan or addition of windows if they can do something else to break up that facade.
Yes, Bino. We're not hearing you. Not hearing you yet. Can you do American Sign Language?
It shows that you're unmuted, so I'm not sure what's happening, Manu.
Maybe turn the volume up, or I don't know.
He's going to try logging back in. While she's logging back in, any other comments on that? Vera, was that your hand? No. No, okay. I think that leaves quite a bit of flexibility that they doesn't have to be a window. It can be any architectural feature that breaks up that wall. Are
But
you
it-
back with us, Bino?
No.
Oh,
No,
Could it be an art installation on that blank piece of wall?
sure. We leave it open. They can do what they want there. Wait, put it in chat. Put your comment in chat, Bino. Pretty soon we'll be doing smoke signals.
she may need to call in if she can't get her computer audio.
Oh,
to
that's
work.
another way to do it.
We've
Yeah.
we've had that happen with some other
good-
people in the past, and
A good
they
backup
need
is to call in. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. All
Yes.
right.
Okay, thank you. So sorry about that. So I wanted to go back to that charging clause, the electric
Okay.
car. The whole system, that electric charging system is very expensive, but just a little outlet, a 220-volt outlet may be much cheaper. So if you could, along with our recommendation to put in that conduit or whatever, if you can include that as well. That'll go a long way, for folks having electric cars. And that's just a suggestion. Back to Dorian's point that, they will have to provide what they need to provide if they need to attract.
Okay.
So here's the condition as it's currently written. Did you have a specific suggested change to this?
The applicant is also encouraged to provide outlets, electric outlets with preferably 220 volt. The newer cars, I believe, require the 220 volt. With each parking space.
Don't you need to have like a special plug though?
It comes with the car, apparently.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay.
For each parking space.
Is that in the garage?
Yeah, I guess it will have to be in the garage.
Are you serious about each parking space
No.
having this?
Oh, not each one. No.
With, or one unit or, 0.5 per unit in that calculation. But again, goes back to the council saying we cannot. Yeah, that will be better.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah. That doesn't specify the number.
That
Okay.
sounds good. I like that.
Yep. Looks good. Okay. Anyone else have any comments on 8? Are we okay with 8? Anyone object to 8? Binu?
Just, if they, just as a negotiation point, if we say all the buildings that are visible from, from the street.
Mm-hmm. And some of those are visible from the street, right, Linda?
Yes. So instead of saying these two, to say on facades visible from Storrs Road.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good compromise.
Carl, I have just one question,
Yeah, go ahead.
or one comment. If we direct them to the 220 volt, I'm just thinking, I think broadening that to just have letting them decide, because 220 volt would be like the slower charging. I have an electric car and that's what we use at home, is just the 220. But
Yeah, there's 440 also. Yeah.
well, that's, I think, they'll decide that the 220 would be the baseline. We didn't have to have an electrician come in and
Right.
install this for us. Some people who have electric cars, they'll install like a very fast charging.
Right. Uh-huh.
So I don't know, like the 220, it takes us like 8 hours to get like 25 miles, but that's so.
I think Jen, isn't that 110?
Well, whatever
8 hours is 110.
we had to.
And then the fast one is 220.
Okay, because the one that we use is for our dryer. We couldn't connect to the other.
That's a
It's like
220.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so.
Well, we're not mandating anything, so
We're
I
not
think
mandating.
they'll do what makes sense, I think.
Okay.
And it might be 440 3 years from now. It might be 440.
Whatever.
Do you want to change to say at least 220 instead of preferably 220?
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
In the future, it might be 880. Who knows?
The ones like if you're going to they're the fast charging ones, it would take like an hour.
Yeah.
To charge your car. Mine, the 220, it takes like.
Yeah.
Many hours.
Okay. Would someone like to put this motion forward?
I'm not raising my hand to do that. I did want
Okay.
to say that I don't think we ever came back to the sidewalk. So I was just stopping share to go back to
Okay.
find that, because you needed to have a discussion about, do you want to allow a financial guarantee for the sidewalk to the western extension? Because what I'm hearing is, no, you want to have that. If you want to have that constructed, then I would add a condition to the same list that we just had to say that you need to revise it to show that, or do that prior to certificate of compliance, because in case there are wetlands ramifications to that.
So Vera, go ahead.
I see no reason to defer it.
Okay,
When they're building the sidewalk, they should build the sidewalk.
let's build it. Anyone else? Everyone agree? Anyone disagree? Okay, let's build it to the west, and to the east, we'll hold off a little bit because there's some wetlands issues there. Okay, would someone like to put this forward?
Give me a few minutes just to make
Oh.
the changes, Paul.
Okay, that's right. What? It's not instantaneous?
Process. I just want to make sure I'm capturing it. So
Okay.
I'm happy to put it forward if you'd like.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to show you what I've done before Carlita starts to read this long motion.
You get extra points for this one, Carlita.
So under conditions to be met prior to certificate of zoning compliance, it includes the extension of the sidewalk along the entire property frontage to connect to the abutting properties to the east and west. So this would give them some time in case there are wetlands that are along that western property line that they need to deal with, or in terms of doing that design. And so they have to before they get a certificate of compliance. And I'm going to add a sentence to this that says, okay. All right, I'm just gonna leave it at that. So the applicant shall submit a revised landscaping plan for commission review and approval that enhances the proposed Storrs Road streetscape to comply with the requirements of Article 10, Section A.11.8.1, which requires a prominent pedestrian-oriented and extensively landscaped streetscape. Such plan shall include at minimum enhanced plantings, specifications for street furniture, including but not limited to a bus shelter that provides accessible seating and protection from the weather, extension of the sidewalk along the entire property frontage to connect to the abutting properties to the east and west, and widening of the proposed sidewalk within the right-of-way from 5 feet to 8 feet to be consistent with the walkways previously installed within the PV3 district. Such plan shall be implemented prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance, with the exception of the eastern sidewalk extension, which may be deferred pursuant to condition 3G.
Okay.
And does that work for everyone? And then condition 3G is now, 3E. The applicant shall submit a financial guarantee for the sidewalk connection to the property to the east, subject to the provisions of Article 6, Section C, if such connection has not been completed during construction. So this now limits that deferral in the financial guarantee to the sidewalk connection to the east.
So you have to correct that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, why? I'm just realizing that we are a little bit
Oh,
out of, I got to figure out where we are here. Too many slides.
it is 3G.
There, I see it. There's the
So
G
that's
that should be an E.
3B, that says, but it's actually E.
Yeah, it should be E instead of G.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Your turn, Carlita.
Okay, where are we? I caught and moved to approve the special permit application of the Standard at Four Corners LLC and Haven Communities LLC, PZC file 1372-2, to authorize a mixed-use development, including 392 residential units and approximately 15,000 square feet of commercial space on 3 parcels located at 1717, 1733, and 1753 Storrs Road, Assessor's Parcel IDs 8.15.10, 8.15.9, and 8.15.8 respectively, and an adjacent vacant parcel, Assessor's Parcel ID 8.15.9-1, as described in application materials and plans revised through February the 7th, 2021. This approval includes the awarding of density bonuses pursuant to Article 10, Section B.5 and Article 10, Section W.7, and a reduction to the minimum number of parking spaces required for the residential portion of the project pursuant to Article 10, Section D.7.6. This application was heard at a public hearing that opened on November the 15th, 2021, and closed on February the 7th, 2022. In approving this application, the Planning and Zoning Commission considered all public hearing testimony and communications and agreed to receive the revised information submitted by the applicant subsequent to the publication of the public hearing notice. This approval is granted because the application is considered to be in compliance with Article 5, Section B, and other provisions of the Mansfield zoning regulations, and is granted with the following conditions. Number 1, extent of approval. This approval is specifically tied to the applicant's submissions and the conditions cited in this motion. Unless modifications are specifically authorized, the proposed uses and site improvements shall be limited to those authorized by this approval. Any questions regarding authorized uses, required site improvements, and conditions cited in this approval shall be reviewed with the zoning agent and director of planning and development, and as deemed necessary, the commission. Number 2, conditions to be met prior to issuance of zoning permit. A, the applicant shall submit the information required by Article 10, Section 8.3 and H.3, and H.5 of the zoning regulations, and an affirmative fair housing marketing plan for review and approval by the commission. B, the applicant shall submit a zoning permit application to merge all of the parcels into one lot prior to issuance of a zoning permit for the development. C, the applicant shall submit documentation demonstrating that parking for residential uses is not included in the base rent and is subject to a separate fee pursuant to the requirements of Article 10, Section D.7.c. D, the applicant shall make the following revisions to the site plan and architectural plan sets and submit final copies for approval by the commission chair. 1, revise sheet C-302 to depict the final approved location of the flood hazard zoning district. 2, revise sheet C-304 of the site plan set to correct the note and layout of the solid waste recycling collection area located on the eastern side of the property related to the number and location of the 8 CY recycling containers. 3, revise sheet C-605 to include the name and contact information for the individual responsible for implementing the erosion and sedimentation control plan. 4, revise sheet DS-35 of the architectural plan set to include the proposed storage for unit type A2. 5, include standpipes within construction plans for the parking structure pursuant to the Connecticut Fire Safety Code. 6, revise site plans set to indicate transformer service openings and required clearance/safety zones. 7, revise site plans set to note that the proposed chain link fence for the dog park shall be coated in black vinyl to match the existing chain link fence surrounding the adjacent sewer pump station. 8, revise architectural plans set to add additional windows or other architectural details to break up the large expanses of blank wall area on building facades visible from Stores Road. 9, revise the plan set to show 6 spaces with electric car charging capabilities pursuant to the presentation made during the public hearing and a note requiring all charging stations to be maintained in operable condition. The applicant is also encouraged to provide electric outlets, at least 220 volts, for parking spaces in the parking garage and plan for an expansion of the car charging system to accommodate future demand. E, the applicant shall provide documentation of Connecticut DOT approval of the proposed bus stop on Stores Road. If Connecticut DOT does not permit the stop, or if WRTD does not alter its route as planned to eliminate the existing bus turnaround at this property, additional commission review shall be required pursuant to the revision provisions of Article 5, Section B.9, and the requirements for parking reductions pursuant to Article 10, Section D.7.c. Failure to meet minimum parking requirements may result in revocation of the special permit. F, the applicant shall submit information on estimated wastewater usage associated with recreational amenities in conjunction with the zoning permit application and sewer connection agreement. G, prior to the issuance of any zoning permits for signs, the applicant shall submit a plan identifying design standards for project and business identity signs for review and approval by the commission. All signs shall conform to the approved sign plan. 3, conditions to be met prior to issuance of certificate of zoning compliance. A, the applicant shall submit a parking management and signage plan for commission approval, including spaces that would be restricted for commercial parking, bicycle parking for commercial businesses, time limits, and proposed enforcement. Any physical improvements required by the approved plan shall be installed prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance. B, the applicant shall submit a revised landscaping plan for commission review and approval that enhances the proposed Stores Road streetscape to comply with the requirements of Article 10, Section A.11.A.1, which requires a, quote, prominent pedestrian-oriented and extensively landscaped streetscape, end quote. Such plan shall include, at a minimum, enhanced plantings, specifications for street furniture, including but not limited to a bus shelter that provides accessible seating and protection from the weather, extension of the sidewalk along the entire property frontage to connect to the abutting properties to the east and west, and widening of the proposed sidewalk within the right-of-way from 5 feet to 8 feet to be consistent with the walkways previously installed within the PB-3 district. Such plan shall be implemented prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance, with the exception of the eastern sidewalk extension, which may be deferred pursuant to condition 3E. C, the applicant shall prepare and record a conservation easement on the land records pursuant to the condition of approval for the related inland wetlands license. This easement shall include provisions to allow for a sidewalk connection to the eastern property line. D, the applicant shall prepare and submit a snow storage and removal plan for approval by the Assistant Town Engineer, Director of Planning and Development, and Inland Wetlands Agent. E, the applicant shall submit a financial guarantee for the sidewalk connection to the property to the east, subject to the provisions of Article 6, Section C, if such connection has not been completed during construction. The town attorney Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Town Finance Director shall be authorized to set the terms of the agreement and accept the financial guarantee, provided that a surety bond shall not be accepted without commission approval. As part of such submission, the applicant shall provide a cost estimate for review and approval by the assistant town engineer. F, the applicant shall submit the final declaration of land use / restrictive covenants for approval by the town attorney for conformance with state regulations and the affordable housing plan approved through this application. The declaration shall be recorded on the land records prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance. G, changes to plant species identified in the approved landscaping plan may be authorized by the zoning agent, provided such substitution is comparable to the original specifications. Should the zoning agent need the assistance of a registered landscape architect in determining the suitability of the proposed substitutions, the zoning agents shall consult with the firm that provided peer review of the landscaping plan, and the applicant shall be responsible for any cost associated with that consultation. Payment to the town for the costs of the consultation shall be made prior to issuance of a certificate of compliance. Number 4, Energy Star certification. The applicant shall submit documentations that the application for Energy Star certification has been completed and submitted to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, within 18 months of issuance of a certificate of occupancy. The applicant shall submit documentation which may consist of a link to the appropriate page on the EPA's website, documenting Energy Star certification within 24 months of issuance of a certificate of occupancy and annually thereafter, documenting certification renewal. Failure to achieve and annually renew Energy Star certification shall be considered a violation of the zoning regulations and shall be subject to enforcement and fines pursuant to the zoning regulations, Mansfield Code of Ordinances, and Connecticut General Statutes. Number 5, maximum square feet of restaurant / eating and drinking uses. Restaurant / eating and drinking uses shall be limited to 7,805 square feet unless a detailed parking analysis demonstrating the sufficiency of the available parking to support additional restaurant space is submitted and approved by the commission. Number 6, contractor parking. All contractor parking shall be provided on site unless alternative locations are authorized by the commission. Number 7, validity. This permit shall not become valid until the applicant obtains the special permit form from the planning office and files it on the land records.
Moved by Cotton. Is there a second? Second by Ward. Any further discussion?
I have some clarifications. The first page, the drawings, I think the date was February 7, 2021. Shouldn't it be 2022 or was it 2021?
It should be February 7th, 2022. So
Good.
I think it was this date right here.
Okay.
Yes, that's the one.
Okay.
And then I want clarification on, I think it was clause C, A, B, C.
Is it
What is that? I just want to understand what that is.
the parking?
Yeah, President.
So the provisions that allow in the regulations that allow you to reduce parking for multifamily residential uses specifically require that that reduction is only available if the applicant basically unbundles parking from the rent. So you do not, parking is not automatically included in your rent. If you want to have parking, it's for a separate, it's an additional charge.
Right. And clarification on, I think, point number 7, the second last slide, I think. Yeah, what is contractor parking?
So essentially that anyone who's working on the project, that the parking for any construction workers on a project is being accommodated on site and not off site.
Okay, so do we want to say all construction contractor parking?
Yep. If the mover and seconder are amenable, I can.
Okay with the mover and the seconder?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, any other? Yes, Vera.
I'm not sure if I misheard it, but in the very first paragraph, next to the last line about Article 10, Section D7C, I thought I heard D76, but I'm just clarifying it's D7C.
Yeah, it's D7C. Any other clarifications, comments, discussion, observations? If not, I think we're ready to vote. So all in favor of the motion, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, so the ayes have it. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 to 1.
And just for the record, for Tony opposed, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Our next item of business is the modification of the site plan on, no, it's the application to modify a special permit for 12 Merrill Road. And Craig and Vera and I were out to see that place next to the railroad tracks. Seems to be a fairly minor change there. Is there anything you'd like to say about that, Linda?
You just in case anyone has any questions, I'll just give a brief overview. So the property at 12 Merrill Road has historically been used as a restaurant. It has had many iterations over the years. I did include some of the conditions, a couple of the conditions of approval, not all of them, but ones that I thought were relevant, including limiting occupancy of the building and deck to 123 people and prohibiting use of the deck after 9 p.m. to prevent neighborhood nuisances. The applicant, or actually in 2012, rather, the zoning agent and planning and zoning commission chair approved a modification to authorize use of the property for the Mansfield Academy of Dance on the basis that that use, which is a commercial recreation use, was more compatible with the RAR 90 zone and neighboring uses. The property, while it was formerly zone business, is currently in the RAR 90 zone, so it is a non-conforming use. And the applicant is requesting authorization to modify that existing commercial recreation use they're going to continue the dance studio use and then expand to include complementary services, including other movement arts and therapies such as Qigong and yoga. They would like to add personal service and business office uses as complementary accessory uses in the building, and allow use of the space for community enrichment classes and workshops, such as wellness workshops, art classes, meditation, poetry readings, writers workshops, land stewardship, etc. And they would ask for a maximum occupancy pursuant to building and fire codes of 96 people and hours of operation from 7 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. And they're not proposing any changes to the exterior of the building or site, with the exception of signage. So we have recommended that while this will be much less intensive, any change of use will need to be approved by Eastern Highlands Health District prior to actually happening. We also expect that, as with the modification that was approved by the chair and the zoning agent in 2012, the proposed changes will result in significantly less traffic than the previous restaurant uses that have been on the site. So the applicant is here, I believe, Mr. Andrew Oliver Rudis, to answer any questions you may have. And we also provide a motion in my memo, and I also have it in PowerPoint form if the commission concurs. And that motion, I was just going to say, the motion did capture the same occupancy on the building and deck of 123 people that had previously been applied, and limited hours of the deck. It prohibited the use of the deck between 9 p.m. and 10 a.m. So.
Any questions for the applicant? If not, do we have a prepared motion?
I'll be glad to put that forward.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just get to it. Oh, I move to approve the application of Andrew Oliver Rudis, applicant, and MAD Holdings, LLC owner, to modify the special permit for 12 Barrel Road, PZC file 714-2, to authorize the uses proposed in the application dated February 3rd, 2022. 1, occupancy of the building and deck shall not exceed 123 people. 2, use of the deck for activities shall be prohibited between the hours of 9 p.m. and 10 a.m. 3, the conditions of approval of the 2012 change in use to use the Mansfield Academy of Dance remain in place. 4, no change in occupancy shall occur until A, requisite approvals have been obtained, if needed, from Eastern Highlands Health District, Mansfield Building Official, and Mansfield Fire Marshal. B, a modification to the special permit is recorded on the land records.
Moved by Ward,
Second, Chandy.
second by Chandy. Any discussion? Yeah. Binu, did you have something to say?
Nothing to say.
Okay. Okay. All in favor? Okay, passed unanimously. 9-0. And the only thing left, we have to receive a motion. Motion for a site plan to provide a more efficient drive-through for the McDonald's. Someone like to put that forward? Looks like they want to have 2 lanes in the back instead of 1.
That one.
Okay, go ahead.
Chandy moves to receive the application of McDonald's USA LLC and McDream Enterprises for a modification to the special permit for property located at 118 Stores Road, PZC file number 817, to refer said application to staff for review and comment, and to schedule a field trip for March 3rd, 2022.
Moved by Chandy,
I'll second.
second by Ward. Any discussion? All in favor? Passed unanimously. Linda, do you have any final message for us?
She's left us.
She's left us. No,
Sorry.
she hasn't left us.
No, and Sandy was just telling me I was on mute from her desk.
Okay.
So at this point, I think the only thing that I'll note is the regulatory review minutes. We did provide minutes from the last couple of meetings, and the committee has started talking about some issues that were raised in the February 7th meeting and added it to their list of items to discuss and work on.
Okay, very good. And we don't have to go out into the rainy night since we're already home. Yay. Thank you all for your time. Thanks for coming out. We'll see you next time. Oh, we're adjourned at 7:31.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Recording stopped.